Welcome to Just Minding My Business Media. I am so happy that you stopped by, and I am excited to bring to you today Jimmy Gibson, who is the Vice President of Brand Communication at Thrive Agency, an 18-year-old digital marketing firm that has earned a spot on the Inc. 5000 list for 7 consecutive years. With over 200 dedicated professionals, Thrive is known for its result driven approach to digital marketing. The agency focuses on growing businesses rather than just making sales and always recommends solutions based on what's genuinely best for the client, not what's most expensive. Wow. Welcome, Jimmy. I'm so happy to have you here today.
I'm anxious to get into a engaging conversation with you, Ida. Thank you for having me.
You absolutely. Well, the last thing we I said was about the result-driven approach to to your agency. So, can you kind of share with us the philosophy and what your day-to-day strategies look like?
Sure, great question. So we like to use this metaphor of driving down a road, and there's a ditch on either side, right? And one ditch is relationships, and the other ditch is results. And if you start to veer over to that relationship side and fall in that ditch, it can be pretty fun and everybody's having a good time. But that's only going to last for a certain amount of time until that business owner says, hey, wait a minute, this is all fun, but I'm not growing my business. I'm spending a bunch of money. And if we get back on that road and then we veer off into the results side, that's a great place to be because getting results. But if you're not liking the people you're working with, it can sort of be a pain. And so you're never really dead even on that road. You're always veering off one side or another. And so you have to make sure you keep track of that. Um, Unfortunately, we get a lot of conversations in the early stages about people who have not gotten results and have not liked the people they work with. And so we sort of want to show them there's a better way. And we like to be very transparent. We like to talk about realistic business goals, what can happen and what might take a little more time. So, yeah, I would say that's our philosophy that we've lived by, and it seems to help us very well.
Yes, yes, because I mean, as we well know, digital marketing is definitely something you just can't do one and done. Uh, it's a water testing type thing. You try something and you see how people react to it. Because at the end of the day, the people are going to tell you whether they like it or not.
That's right. Yeah, I think we have this term we call the hippo factor, which is the highest paid person's opinion. And we often run into that where somebody within an organization believes something is going to happen this way or that way. And we go, oh, totally respect that. Let's let the numbers tell us, just like you said, the audience is going to let us know. And oftentimes we get surprised. I mean, we have a lot of data. We work with about 1,000 active clients. We've been at this, as you mentioned, for 18 years. I think I may have sent you a little older bio, but we're actually celebrating our 20th anniversary this year, which is sort of a unicorn in the digital marketing space. So we have a pretty good idea on which direction we need to head. But, each business and each customer base is different. And guess what? You throw in all of this AI craziness that's been going on the last few months, and you have to, what's the old saying, measure twice, cut once. Um, so those are the things that we're dealing with right now.
Yes, yes, because it's definitely not an easy, digital marketing is very, very difficult for if you try to do it yourself. And most more times than not, as a business owner, you just don't have the time.
Yeah, things move very quickly, and we like to be that partner and let them do what they do best, right? If you spread yourself too thin, that's a difficult place to be. And yeah, we don't really want to be considered a vendor. We want to be considered a partner and be thinking as if it were our own business, and be able to advise in the right places. You're absolutely right.
Yes, indeed. So let's talk a little bit about websites,
Sure.
and how your company, what's the philosophy on a company's website?
Yeah. So it's interesting when we talk about all these platforms, Meta, YouTube, TikTok is very popular. Um, those are great places to get visibility. Often it's, um, if it's organic, it may look free, but it does take a lot of time and energy to trip that algorithm in your favor. If it's a paid engagement, then obviously you're paying for that traffic. But the website ends up being the hub of all activities related to people learning about your brand, understanding more about you. It's more of a controlled conversation. And it is the one thing that you own besides your email list, right? Because things can change. We remember a few months ago, TikTok got shut down for a while, maybe 24, 48 hours. People were uh, frantically figuring out, what am I going to do? When these things change, you don't want to be abandoned or be on an island without a property like your website. And so when we get into a website, a lot of times people think, all right, I've just launched a new website. It's over. No, it's actually just begun, right? And so you have to take care of that moneymaker. And we like to call it a money making machine, because if you're driving people to that website to um, find out how to make an appointment, buy your product, if you're an e-commerce business, it's a valuable resource and an asset in your organization. One thing that we're seeing, and you probably heard the term zero click world that we live in now, when somebody searches, I think that is a factor, but I still think at this point there's a comfort level in knowing that a business has a website. You get to learn more about them, and we can talk about some pitfalls that folks get into, how to make sure your website is optimized effectively. But yeah, I would say philosophically, we believe it's the place you need to spend a considerable amount of time. And if your website is more than 2 to 3 years old before it's had a major update or a refresh, it's probably time to look at it, because things get stale pretty quickly with the new developments.
Absolutely, because I'm one. I look at my website. January is look at everything.
Yep,
That's like my, let me see, do I need to update something? Is something getting stale? And, things like that. And because I do media, I have tools where everything that I do automatically goes to the website. All the interviews,
sure.
once they publish, they automatically go there. So it's constantly changing in that aspect. So I agree with you. When all fails, you got your website and you got your mailing list.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
I,
I'm sorry.
Go right ahead. And so tell me a little bit of things in terms of strategies to keep you know, optimize your website, because I think that's a real challenge for many business owners.
Sure. Yeah. And I'm actually going to use a media term. I know that you're heavily involved in that area. And if we look back to the days of a newspaper, and maybe some of the listeners got a newspaper once a day or twice a day, right? Other people may be going, what is a newspaper? I read an online paper. But there's a term called above the fold, which when newspapers were put in a box on the street, the paper was folded in half, and then the newspaper showed through a glass window. And that's where all the top stories were, right? And that was really the enticement to get somebody to purchase that newspaper. And so that was really your lead generator or your excitement. And then when you put your quarter in that little slot at the top, that was the call to action to pay for the newspaper. And so a lot of these terms have transferred over and just sort of stuck. And so when you think about above the fold, that's the visible area of the website that shows up, whether it be on mobile, whether it be on some type of tablet or a desktop. screen, that's your most important real estate. And so, really, what we see now when folks come to us for starting a new company or refreshing or in growth mode is a lot of the information above that fold is either confusing or focused on the business itself. Really, it should be focused on your ideal customer. What is their pain point? How quickly can you get that message across so that when they land there, they go, oh my gosh, these are the people for me. They get me, they understand me. And it should be crystal clear as to what that is. We also see a lot of what we call CTAs or calls to action that are conflicting. So there might be a button that says call to schedule an appointment. There might be a button that says click here for more info. There may be a form that you fill out, and that can be confusing if you give people too many choices. And so I would say figure out what it is you want them to do, one thing, and ask them to do that one thing. And so I would say the other thing that you want to do is you want to have some sort of social proof or credibility above the fold. So if you're in an industry that requires credentialing or awards, or maybe there's a client testimonial that's very short that somebody could see. So if you just imagine that little rectangle and all of that information is in that one spot, if I didn't look at the rest of your website, I would have a pretty good idea if I believed you could do what you're telling me you could do, right? And then don't worry about the rest of the site until you get that. And it's painful. You have to cut and cut and cut and make sure you've really got that clear. So I would say from a content and a messaging standpoint, that's what I would say. The other thing that happens a lot now is there's more searches being done on a mobile device than on a desktop. That happened a few years ago. And much of the software is able to translate the website into a mobile experience, but sometimes it doesn't look pretty. It might look too small. The buttons might be too small for somebody to touch. So make sure you're looking at your website on a variety of devices. So those are some just quick tips. And, there are some technical things that you need to be aware of, and I'm happy to dive into that if you think it might be
Yes,
helpful.
absolutely, because that's your storefront.
That is your storefront. You gotta take care of it, and you hopefully want a line of people waiting to buy from you. The other thing that's happening now is, I'm guilty of this myself. You put something in the microwave and you don't wait for the counter to reach zero, right? You got to get that stuff out of the microwave. Well, that's sort of the same mentality with folks on a website. If it takes too long to load, they're going to be impatient. They're going to move on. And so there's something called page load speed, which if you just put that in Google, there's actually a free tool by Google that they will rank your website for how fast it loads. A lot of the things that we see that cause a website not to load quickly or images are too big, or they're just have more resolution than they need to have. And so, number one, your website needs to be mobile friendly. Number two, it needs to load quickly. And people ignore that. They don't really consider that. So I would say if you have somebody that you work with, get them to test your page load speed. The other thing that we're seeing now, and this is actually an opportunity for folks. When you're creating the content for the website, don't just go to ChatGPT and say, I'm a plumber, or I'm an accountant, or I have a coffee shop, and take the first thing that comes out of ChatGPT and put that on your website, right? Because what's going to happen? It's going to be very generic. It's going to be very friendly. It's going to not say a whole lot about your personal story. And so Google and these large language models that are now ranking sites in a much different way are looking for experience, expertise, your authority on that subject, your trustworthiness. So we've already talked about customer reviews. How many do you have? Do you have Google reviews? Is your website better for Yelp reviews? So you want to look at all that, but then you also want to be able to tell your story, why you're passionate about that business. And when you do that, and everybody else is just taking the first thing that comes out of Chat GPT, you are going to be head and shoulders above everybody else, and it's actually going to give you a competitive advantage. So yeah, I would say those are some things that we're talking about every day with clients and prospects.
Yes, and I think a lot of people, like you just said, because now you can build a whole website with
Mhm.
ChatGPT, but you have to inject you
Oh yeah,
and your personality into your website, because what happens, I believe, is when you talk to people, how you your personality has to match what's on your website.
it does. And I've got a trick to help the listeners if you'd like to hear it.
Yes, I would.
Okay. I'm going to sit up in my chair, and those watching on video, I'm going to hold up my hand. And for those that are listening, I'm going to talk you through it. So I've basically got my left hand in the air, and I've got all my fingers wide and spread open. And we're going to start with the pinky. So if you're trying to figure out what do I need to say about my company that is going to be the real deal, authentic, talk about all the scars and bruises, have some emotion to it that's going to separate you from the pack, I'm going to give you 5 fingers, and there's probably 20 things that you could do on your website or your blog or on your social media that are going to set you apart. And so if we start with the pinky, we probably all remember that pinky promise when we were kids on the playground, and you latched pinkies together and you said, I pinky promise too. Well, you didn't break that promise, or your name would not be pretty on the playground. So, what promise? Yep. Go ahead, Ida.
Go right ahead.
Yeah. So, what promise are you making to your customers? If you are a service provider, what promise are you making at the level of service that you're going to provide? If you make a product, what about the things that you use as raw materials? What about your customer service? What are you promising you're going to deliver? What are you promising to your team? What are you promising to your vendors? So that's a great place to start. And there should be a lot of emotion around what you're promising and how you want to live up to the expectations of what you're putting out there. The next one is the ring finger, and you might think that's a promise, but it's actually about the passion that you bring to your business. And then really thinking about it as that courtship. If you are married, you didn't ask that person to marry you on the first date, right? So, what are you doing to respect that courtship? And then, how long are you in this relationship for? What in your mind is a good relationship with a client? We talk about total customer value. My wife and I just celebrated 20 years of marriage. And I think about the relationship in a different way when I think about it. I'm in it for the long haul, right? So think about that, not only with your customers, but with your teams that you lead. Um, the next one is the middle finger, Ida, and don't get scared. I'm going to leave all my fingers up. Um, a lot of people think that's a vulgar expression. It's actually an expression of defiance. And so when you think about that middle finger in defiance, that's really your enemy. And so, what is the enemy of your brand? What is the enemy that you need to protect your customer from? And if you truly believe your product or service is the best choice for them, then you need to warn them and protect them from that enemy or villain. And that's not something you can put in a prompt to Chat GPT, right? Now, that might be a person, it might be a company, it might be an ideology. And again, you don't have to name the person, but if people are shopping around, they'll probably be aware of some alternative things that they can do instead of working with your business. And so it's up to you and your responsibility to name that. The next one is the pointy finger. And I say pointy finger because in the US, we're probably familiar with those posters of Uncle Sam. We want you, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so you have to know exactly who you're talking to. Who is your ideal customer? You should be able to point them out in a crowd. And then once you point them out in the crowd, you should be able to beckon them in and say, come see what we have to offer, right? It's also the symbol for number one. And so every piece of content you put out there should be directed at one person, solving one problem, and presenting one offer. Otherwise, you're going to confuse the people that you want to be your customer. The next one is the thumb. The thumb is the universal symbol for, hey, things are going well, thumbs up, or thumbs down, things aren't going so well. And so we've probably all seen these memes of do this, don't do that. You can do the same thing with your business, right? So again, I mentioned if you have a coffee shop, um, why is your coffee better? Why is your blend or the way you grind or the way you source your beans from better? Drink good coffee, don't drink bad coffee, right? And then the other part of that is the thumbprint. What thumbprint are you leaving on the world because you're involved in this business in this city with these people? What thumbprint are you leaving on the team that you work with every day? How's it improving their lives? And then what thumbprint are you leaving as a legacy on your customers? It's interesting. I have three sets of twins as nieces and nephews, and they can open each other's phone with their face ID, but they can't open it with their thumb. It's unique to you. And so, what are you doing to talk about your unique personality of yourself, how your business was created, and the team that you have that is bringing products and services? And so, I just named off probably 20, 25 things just using my hand. It's something you can carry around with you when you're stuck to think about how you're going to revise your website. There you go. You got 5 pages on your website. If you're worried about social media, pick a finger. There's probably 5 or 10 things you can say about each finger. So, yeah, I mean, that's a pretty easy takeaway, and it's filled with passion and personality and a point of view that you can't get from AI.
Wow. And I love that. I love that. Thank you, Jim. That was a really, really good analogy. You know, very simple, straight to the point,
Yeah.
and understandable for most people. Wow. So if people want to work with your Thrive agency, how do they do so?
Yeah. So thriveagency.com. It's a pretty big website. We've got a lot of resources on there. I write a blog every month, and then it's followed up by about a 20-minute video. But yeah, there's plenty of ways to get in touch with whatever service you might need help with. And if folks are sort of apprehensive or they want to ask me a few questions, I'm on LinkedIn every day doing some sort of post or educational or motivational something. So hit me up in the DMs. Let me know that you heard me on this wonderful podcast, and happy to schedule a little chat.
Yes, yes, indeed. Oh, wow, because you definitely dropped some gems that people need to know about, for real, because your website, that's your store.
It is.
The
And we've
digital
been built
store.
for 20 years. Yes.
And I'm really, I picked up definitely some tips I'm gonna use from you in this conversation, but I'm really always looking at my website, not just for functionality, but also to make sure it's having that third eye, you know, like I'm a customer.
Sure. Yeah. You have to sit in your customer's seat. Absolutely.
Yes, indeed. Wow. So let's talk about how you work with how you analyze your clients' unique data points. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. I think every business is different and you have to respect where folks are. And so we spend a lot of time creating we're pulling data from the 20 years of working with a variety of clients in a variety of industries. There's some tools that many of the folks out there may be familiar with. And we actually pulled together 25 data points where we analyze businesses on how well they're doing related to visibility and conversions. And then we added an extra little layer in there, depending on the life cycle of the business, whether they're a startup and this is their first website, or whether they're in high growth mode, or whether they're in a mature state. And then we talk about the business like, okay, you're here now. Where do you want to go? How quickly do you want to go there? Um, what budget do you have to get there? And then it becomes a business conversation. And then we call it the Thrive score. And then that score follows you along through your relationship. So everybody knows here are the priorities. There's no confusion. There's no mismatch in expectations. And then we get excited when, a client moves that number towards their goal in a significant way. And the other part that's exciting is they know why, because they were involved in the decision making and they understand how we came about this plan. And yeah, it's just a wonderful thing that helping people sort of navigate this world of the internet that can be pretty confusing and intimidating.
Yes, indeed. Wow, for sure. Because I mean, you need help with that, especially if you don't understand.
Oh yeah.
And most folks, they know their business like the back of their hand. But when it comes to, marketing and internet and all that kind of stuff, it's like, oh my God, this is way too much for me.
And you shouldn't feel bad about not knowing. It's not your
No,
responsibility. Yeah.
no, it's not. I agree. Give it to the expert. So that way you'll be successful instead of you trying to do it.
And hold them accountable because you're investing your money and you want a return on that. So don't just hand them a wad of cash and then say it's taken care of. You got to participate and you got to be part of the process and be engaged, because like you just said, nobody knows your business except you, right? And so that's the part that's sort of the collaborative approach that we love.
Yes. And earlier we talked about nurturing the relationships and delivering results. And we all know that can be easier said than done for real. Because, so how do you balance that?
Yeah. So I think, first of all, we got to know what we're going after, right? And that's involved in the plan. I came to Thrive to expand their strategy department. I believe if you don't have a good plan or a good strategy, you're going to end up somewhere you don't want to be. And it's probably going to cost you way more than you wanted to, right? And so we love to start with that plan. And then that plan has to be uh, matched to whatever it is that the owner wants or the team that the owner has delegated and the budget associated with that. And then we have to respect that relationship, steward that money well, and meet with the client on a regular basis and ask questions and deliver um, good news and talk about the tough news and not be afraid to admit when we're wrong or uh, work through a situation that needs to be worked through. And I think that's any part of any healthy relationship, right? I just talked about being married for 20 years. It hasn't been, lollipops and rainbows for 20 years, but I'm still here. And, she kissed me on her way out the door a minute ago and we're all good, but it does take work on both parts. And so we love working with people who can tell it like it is and give us you know, give us what they want to give us, but also respect our team and we're going to respect their team. And yeah, it's a mutual relationship. And when that doesn't work, then it's okay for us to go our separate ways because maybe we're not the perfect match for that particular client.
Yes. And that's how it has to be.
Mm-hmm.
In order to build something, you got to work together. I don't know
Yes.
what it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's never going to change. With all the changes in the world, that you must participate in your growth
Yes, absolutely.
for sure. Okay. Professional magician
Oh, we're getting to that. All right.
and a TEDx speaker. Let's talk about how you use that to incorporate in what you do.
Yeah. So Um, I've been interested in magic. I got a magic kit when I was 6. And in high school, I met a gentleman who worked at an ad agency, and he was wanting to know if I was interested in working with a global brand doing some promotional shows. I said, "Oh, yes, I don't have to work retail or cut the grass." Absolutely. So I started doing those shows. That relationship lasted another 16 years. And as I got to hang out at the ad agency, I thought, wow, this is a pretty cool, you know, industry. And, it's kind of actually like a magic trick because you have to capture attention, you have to keep them engaged. Then you have to pull off the magic at the end, right? And I started thinking about it and I went, yeah, if I had to pick a profession, that probably would be it. And so I had there was a point where I was a professional magician where my income relied on that. And then became very interested in marketing, went to school for marketing, started working at ad agencies, which is what they were called back then. And they seem to inform each other. And so when I think about a marketing campaign or connecting with an audience, I'm thinking about the three stages of connection, curiosity, and conversion. And it's amazing. There's brain chemistry, Ida, that actually follows the path of a magic trick. And that same brain chemistry follows the path of a marketing message. And I think if we skip any of those steps, um, we talked about LinkedIn earlier. It's interesting on LinkedIn, it's called a connection request. But what happens usually after you accept somebody's connection request? They immediately send you a sales pitch, right?
They do.
And so you kind of go, ooh, that feels weird because
Yes.
we've skipped the point of actually establishing that relationship. We talked about the ring finger and respecting the courtship of that relationship. And so when we're in a conversation with somebody, whether it be over a marketing piece or across a Zoom conversation or in person, that first point is a connection point, and that actually releases oxytocin in the brain, and that floods your body with this feeling of like, oh, this is kind of cool. I'm interested, and this is going pretty well. Yeah, I feel comfortable, right? And so when a magician walks out on stage, that's what they're trying to do, right? They greet the audience. They might point to somebody in the front row, and the audience is like, oh, well, this is going to be kind of fun. Same kind of thing, right? And now we've opened the door to move to the next stage, which is curiosity. And so the magician might say, Ida, that's a very nice sweater you have on. Do you have a deck of cards at home? I'm not asking you to go home and get them, but I have one right here. Do you know the cards? And you would say, of course. And then I would say, I just want you to think about one of those cards. You know, it could be the clubs, hearts, spades, diamonds, you know, whatever the case may be. And then ace low, king high, you know, and we start to talk about this card, this deck of cards. And so what happens? The audience goes, wow, this is interesting. I wonder what's going to happen, right? Same thing happens in a marketing conversation. You get to the point where you go, you know, what is your business challenge? Da, 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 da. And then you might say, and this is one of the most powerful phrases, is what if? What if I could present a solution to you that would change all of that in an instant? And what does your brain do? It goes, well, I don't think that's possible. I've been trying to solve this for a long time, right? And so that curiosity is activated, which is actually dopamine. And, you know, we've heard about dopamine addiction with social media, but it's actually the expectation of a reward. Because when you post on social media, you want somebody to like it or share it or comment on it, right? And so the same thing, if we start talking about the cards, then pretty soon the audience is going to go, okay, I think the magician might be trying to figure out or is going to reveal what that card is. Now, if we stretch that out too long, the audience is going to get bored. So you have to know your room, right? In a conversation, in a sales conversation or a marketing conversation, you kind of have to know how long do we keep this curiosity up before we go to the conclusion, which can be the climax of the trick, or it can be the conversion, which is actually a release of serotonin, which is that chemistry in your brain that's like, oh, okay, it all makes sense now. Oh, wow, everything is right with the world. And it's just this great feeling, right? And so that's what's missing from that LinkedIn engagement because they haven't respected the connection. They haven't piqued your curiosity. And then they've gone straight for the close. And I think if we remember that, and I mean, this could literally be in an email, it could be in a blog post, it could be in a personal sales conversation, it could be in a marketing email. Um, you've got to follow that sequence so that not only you're playing into the brain chemistry, but you're respecting the stages that somebody has to go through for everything to, you know, establish that authority, gain that trust, have them feel comfortable. And so that was probably a way longer answer than you were expecting for this, but I think there's a lot of parallels between the world of magic and the world of marketing. And I would say the one thing that I believe is missing today is that activating of curiosity. I think we try to skip over that too many times, and that can really engage somebody at a heightened level and really connect them to your brand.
I love it. Jim, you have been, I'm just thinking about everything that we're talking about. And, you're so right. I mean, I love LinkedIn, but you're right. As soon as I accept somebody's invitation, immediately I get something to buy.
Mm-hmm.
And in that moment, I'm like, why are they trying to sell me something? They don't even know me.
Mm-hmm. And then that predisposes you to be on your guard the next time you get a connection request.
Yes, and it happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It happens all the time. So, audience, if you don't take nothing else away from this, don't do that.
Please, please.
Please. Wow, Jim. So, again, how do people connect with Thrive?
Yep. So thriveagency.com, just like it sounds. And then I'm on LinkedIn, and my name is spelled a little bit different. It's actually JIMI Gibson. So like Jimi Hendrix, and then Gibson, the refrigerator or the guitar. Um, Probably the guitar sounds cooler than a refrigerator, unless you're hungry. But yeah, be happy to set up a chat with anybody, or we've got plenty of ways for folks to connect and learn more about Thrive. And if they're struggling with anything related to digital marketing, we don't do a hard sell. We just chat with you about where you are and where you want to be. And if we can help you, great. If not, maybe we could point you in a direction that would be beneficial for you until you're ready to come back.
Wow, that's amazing. I got homework to do tonight.
Good homework, though. Fun
Yeah,
homework.
good homework. Yes, indeed. So this has been a pleasure, Jimmy. We are definitely going to have you back because I like the way you explain things, the analogies you use, and of course, some of the stuff is old school, and I definitely can relate.
Yes, yes.
Especially the newspaper. I'm thinking to myself because I used to do transcription for reporters
Oh, my.
for the Baltimore Sun,
Oh,
and
wow.
for many years, and it was such an amazing situation how I got them. I really don't remember, but I do remember I never met any of them.
Oh,
They,
wow.
they would just leave their tapes at the front desk. I would go
Probably
pick the
the little
tapes
micro
up.
cassette tape.
Yeah.
Yep, yep.
And then I would finish up the transcription, bring everything back, and drop it off. That's how we rolled.
Mm, that's a
Never
hard
seen
thing.
me, never seen them.
That's wild.
That was trusting,
Oh,
somebody
yeah.
heard me, and they was like, "You're hired." So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
yes. So let's do this again because this was definitely amazing, and I will definitely connect with you on LinkedIn. And audience, thank you. I know you guys got a bunch of good stuff today.
Well, that was fun, Ida. Thank you for having me, and I'm happy to come back anytime.
Thank you.